Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to go over our new book, which is called Focusing on the Underserved, Immigrants, Refugees, and Indigenous Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in Higher Education, edited by Sam D. Mussis and Emma Phil Agbayani and Doris Ching. Today, we'll go over Chapter 2, Beyond Boba Tea and Samosas, A Call for Asian American Race Consciousness by Sunum Penadkar and Vijay Penador. All right, Beyond Boba Tea and Samosas. In 1982, Vincent Chin was clubbed to death in Detroit, Michigan. He was a newlywed, fiance. He went to a bar to celebrate his impending nuptials. Detroit was having a terrible economic time. A lot of their jobs in the auto industry were actually getting destroyed. A lot of people blame Japan, and particularly if it happens to one Asian, it happens to all. They're actually they can't tell the difference, and so they blamed Japanese for the reason why they're losing their jobs. And so he went to a bar, got in a fight with Michael Nitz and his son, his stepson, and the two stepsons called him, "You Japanese person, you're taking all my jobs." He's beaten to death, and actually the two people who beat him to death never went to jail and had a small fine of $2,000, and then they never paid. So that really galvanized the Asian American community, and actually one of the first times where there was an Asian American identity, because a lot of Asian Americans thought that was a terrible decision, that someone can be murdered, someone Asian, yet the people who murdered him had no kind of consequences. Now, in 2012, six Sikh people were actually praying in their temple, and they were gunned down by a racist person in Wisconsin. And so that was a huge thing that happened. Currently in 2018 and now and beyond, actually, there's a Muslim ban. So I would like you to answer these questions. You can pause it. What country in the world has the highest Muslim occupation or population? Number two, what ethnic group was banned from the US in 1882? So the answer, the highest Muslim populated country in the world is Indonesia, an Asian country. And again, in Asia, there's large populations of Muslims, and actually a lot of people think Middle East, but actually it's Asia that has the most Muslims in the world. What ethnic group was banned from the US in 1882? And that was Chinese, the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act. So this chapter asks, so like, where are you from? Like, really from? What does that mean? Well, some people can think about that's a way people, make you it's like a microaggression. It makes you feel like you're not a real American, that you don't belong, but you do belong because you're an American, and there's Americans of all different shapes and sizes. So some things that have really attached to Asian Americans is this idea that they are a model minority, that everything they do is perfect, and they're just achieving at the highest level. Don't help them at all because, they're just taking over. So again, that's a model minority myth, which is the flip side of the yellow peril. It's just too much. And that's actually created not by Asian people, but created to make Asian people a sword to actually wound, particularly African Americans, a Black and brown community, saying, why can't you be like Asians? When in reality, Asian Americans, particularly Pacific Islanders, Southeast Asians, and very large percentages of South and East Asians have a lot of high poverty. So again, the model minority myth is not even true. You can see that if you actually disaggregate. So in terms of Asian American college students, are they underserved? Definitely. How are they underserved? Well, there's not any Asian American classes for them at the majority of colleges in America. There's no Asian American minors. There's no Asian American majors. There's very few Asian American professors. For example, if you look at some schools like UC Irvine, 1 in 2 students are Asian. But look at the percentage, look it up. What percentage of the professors are actually Asian? It's not 50%, it's nowhere near 50%. So again, they're not being represented in many different spaces. Stereotypes, cultural themes. Asian Americans are, again, a lot of Asian Americans are fighting back and saying that they are not a costume. You can't wear me for Halloween, or just a lot of people saying they're not the model minority. They're not the crazy rich Asians. Actually, Asians are like everyone else. They struggle. They are good at some things, bad at some things, and they're just like everyone else. And to give them this false narrative that they're great at everything is really a way for you to silence a group and say, oh, don't complain, and actually will use you to go against another group. So again, a lot of Asian Americans are fighting back. So Asian Americans have historically been called the yellow peril, which is they're exotic, disgusting. If you look at this picture, you know, this Asian American person is being, or this Chinese person is being kicked out by America. And there it's a propaganda picture. And that, of course, kind of pushed the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act. And again, the opposite, the opposite on the coin of the yellow peril of too dirty, too exotic, too erotic is actually too smart, too rich, too powerful. This idea that Asian Americans are doing great, which is not true at all. The origin of model minority myth was William Peterson. He wrote this article called Japanese American Success Style, where he said, oh, the Japanese were discriminated against, but look at them. They even through the internment, now they're doing great. Okay, of course, that's not true. There's lots of poverty in all Asian American communities. So again, here's the actual William Peterson article where he says, oh, success story, Japanese American style. Not true. This promotes the model minority myth. And again, Asian Americans are the first to tell you that there's lots of problems in the Asian American community, social, economic, cultural, political, and the model minority myth really makes people think, oh, they should not complain because everything's going their way. They don't take any concern about them. They're real problems. For example, 2,500 Asian Americans have been attacked in racist episodes throughout America, just from COVID. So again, no one will actually talk about that because Asians are the model minority. Let's talk about the effects of the model minority, okay? Well, it makes Asians who, majority Asians don't go to Harvard, it makes them feel bad. Actually, for the Asians who do go to college, over 50% of them go to junior college first. So that's actually the majority. So majority, actually, Asians go to junior college first, not Harvard, okay? Also, other minorities distrust and hate Asians, right? They have a discrimination, and you know, they feel like, oh, Asians are taking over, okay? Also, Asians do not get equal help services such as tutoring or mentoring, okay? And again, Asian Americans, the model minority myth is used as a sword to hurt African Americans. And see examples of the Harvard affirmative action fight. On the surface, it looks like someone Asian American is actually fronting it, but in reality, it's the same people who've always been anti-affirmative action, which are Anglo-American activist groups, and they just put an Asian American on the face and the cover of their same lawsuit they've been having about affirmative action for years. Now, Asian American college student identification. Now, if I asked you, what are you or who are you? Most Asian Americans, even in the second generation, will actually identify with their ethnic group, right? And that's important to note. Asian Americans actually have a lot more in common than different, right? Asian Americans need to group up, right? And have a pan ethnicity. You can have your individual ethnicity, that's great. But as a group, you should also pan up with your group and also be leaders within the Asian American community, every Asian American group. And also not just a member of Asian American groups, but also being a leader in your community, such as volunteering and creating things for your community. And you can actually also be a leader in your entire community, not just your ethnic community. It could be in the entire school or your entire global America. So that's something to think about. You don't have, yes, Asian Americans should group up and have pan ethnicity, but I want you to think about also being leaders in different realms as well, and for all people. All right, thank you very much. And we will discuss this in class further. Have a wonderful day.